And this evening we're going to learn about requirements gathering and elicitation techniques, the top 10 in no particular order. So if you're confused about which techniques to use for your project, then you're going to want to stick around because we're going to review those. And we recently received a lot of questions about these type of techniques, and we hope this show will answer some of those questions. So if you're interested in learning more about requirements gathering and elicitation techniques, if so, just say yes in the comments or throw us some hearts. And before we kick things off, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Mary Ann Morrison. And Kathleen,
I'm juggling at the moment.
And she's plugging away as fast as she can to make sure we stay connected. We created the BOE Zone to help everyone who creates and maintains business and technical documents. Remember, we're doing this for you, so if you want to tell us what you'd like to see in future episodes of the show, we'd love to help you with that. So whatever your business analysis questions or needs, we can help you get to where you need to be. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started with the top 10 techniques for better requirements gathering and elicitation. If we can get that presentation to come up.
Guess what else is missing?
Had some more technical difficulties today.
All right, one sec. Okie doke.
Yay, and the crowd goes wild. Okay, let's get right into it since we've had a few delays. First thing we'd like to do is, again, we're talking about the 10 techniques for better requirement gathering and elicitation. And we're just going to do a little overview. There are many techniques, tools, and approaches to requirements gathering and elicitation. And within that, there are multiple variations within each category. So tonight we're just going to be talking about the top 10, surveys and questionnaires, document analysis, observation and shadowing, brainstorming, interviews, requirement worksheets, workshops or JAD sessions, joint application design sessions, interface analysis, reverse engineering, prototyping, and focus groups. So if we go to the first slide, we're going to talk about surveys and questionnaires. We did discuss this in last week's show, but just a quick overview. Surveys and questionnaires are a set of standard questions, and you can use a variety of delivery methods to quickly obtain facts and opinions and behaviors from a large group of people. They can be used to identify user and customer perceptions and expectations, gauge the level of customer satisfaction with, a product, process, or service. You can identify pain points that the users are experiencing in an application, product, or process. And you can identify the potential improvements or enhancements or future requirements. And in addition, you can prioritize those proposed changes or enhancements. And again, if you want to know a little bit more about the surveys, we have an ebook out there, and we'll show that slide at the end of the session. Number 2, document analysis. Document analysis is basically taking a look at all the existing documentation that you can find in order to extract any information or requirements that are relevant to a current project. And some of the places you can look for those, and there are a lot of them. I'm just going to name some of them. Are procedural training manuals by department or role, and there may be many types based on the various roles or departments within an organization. Computer software or training manuals or videos, and those also could be role specific. There's documentation used to perform your daily tasks, your monthly or annual tasks. A lot of that information can be found right on people's desks, taped to the wall or tacked to the wall. You can also look in client contracts and agreements You'll find a lot of information there as well. Departmental policies and procedure manuals, and any type of government agency rules such as HIPAA or FCC rules that would have to be implemented into a particular application in order to satisfy those requirements. Observation or shadowing. Shadowing, it's very film noir, but it's basically just watching users in action as they perform their tasks or as they interact with a product, an application, or a process. And through that, you can identify a lot of issues or opportunities for improvements. You can observe the complexity and measure performance and user satisfaction. You can assess the environmental factors that are occurring while they're trying to use a product or an application. You know, what's going on around them, the day-to-day. You can find a lot of other user stories as they're trying to get their job done. You can identify additional hardware or even new hardware that they need. You know, a lot of times the hardware is really old. You know, businesses just don't typically keep up with it, but it may be drastically affecting the way they do their jobs. So you can identify those types of hardware or software interface needs that might come up. By watching someone, you know, sort of over their shoulder, sort of quietly, you can get a deeper understanding of the users and their tasks. And in the same time, you're starting to build a relationship between you and the user. You know, they get to know you, you get to know them, and it sort of builds a level of confidence so that they trust you when you start giving them feedback or recommendations as to how to improve the application or their process. Number 4 is brainstorming. Brainstorming kind of gets a bad rap, but it's still fairly used in the industry. And it's basically just an informal group technique that uses intensive discussion to solve a problem or to generate ideas. And you sort of do that by introducing the problem or a challenge in the form of a question, like one big question, and then all the participants speak freely. They suggest as many ideas as possible. Crazy ideas are encouraged, so this is where you can really let your freak flag fly. And you want to focus on quantity, not so much quality, and you don't hear that very often. To set the tone, you may want to spend a few minutes coming up with really bad ideas. And this sort of helps loosen people up and to come up with some really great ideas. What happens typically in these sessions is the participants sort of build on each other's ideas. So even if it's a wacky idea, there might be a little kernel in there where it may trigger something in someone else's brain to say, you know, might be a way to go and another great idea. And, you know, the main thing is you don't want to criticize anyone's ideas. You don't want to discuss them at this point or evaluate them. And, you know, criticism is kind of like, it's sort of like kills creativity and participation. So within criticism, you don't want any laughing, you don't want any hand gestures, no eye rolling, audible groans, heavy sighs, that type of thing. Kind of just sort of, it'll just stop it dead in its tracks. So you want to, as a facilitator, you want to shut that down pretty quickly. The discussion and the evaluation of all the ideas happens after the brainstorming session. So it's sort of a two-phase approach. Okay. Technique number 5 is interviews. Interviews, you know, is basically just asking questions of an individual or a group, you know, in order to obtain information. It's usually a select group of folks. They can be structured interviews with a set of predefined questions, or they can be unstructured and free-flowing. The success in getting that information is really dependent on the readiness of the interviewee to provide the information. You know, a lot of people hold back, you know, whether they think it's because their job, you know, if they hold that information, their job is more secure. And a lot of it is the knowledge and skill of the interviewer, and there are ways to pull that information out of folks. And it is an acquired skill. And there's a lot to be said around interviewing, but this is just an overview, and we'll get into those deeper dives in future sessions. Number 6, requirements workshops or the joint application design sessions. And this can almost be looked at as an extension of interviews, where it's more of a structured collaborative meeting. It's led by a facilitator with a select group of folks, and you're going to be able to discover, discuss, define, refine, and validate requirements. It's more of a team approach. It gives you immediate feedback. You are able to readily get a consensus between all the parties to really nail down requirements. You can identify subgroups for follow-up tasks and, actually say this is what we're going to do and when we're going to have it done by. And the group is then collectively responsible for all of those deliverables. And JAD sessions work great. They could be of varying lengths. I've been in JAD sessions that are just an hour or requirement workshops that last a week every day, on site with clients. So they're a great way to get information and consensus across the board. Number 7, the 7th technique that we're going to look at is interface analysis. Interface analysis is identifying and modeling and documenting the user interface requirements, any type of supporting external components or external hardware devices, controls, or interactions. And really what you're doing a lot of times is with an interface analysis from the user's perspective, is you're going to focus on their tasks, their flow, the content, and the work environment by literally stepping through that interface. You're going to be looking for things that the human does versus a computer-oriented task, and the interoperability of all the components, how they all work together, whether they're internal, external, whether it's a suite of products or an application, how all those components work. Whether there's inputs, outputs in the form of, it could be anything, form letters, email messages, etc. All the validation rules and anything that might trigger those events to occur. And you're also going to be looking at the structural data components and the controls or the business rules that occur throughout the application. It's really a great way to be looking for redundant data. We found a lot of redundant data this way, or rules that conflict with each other. So stepping through an interface and also looking at all those external components will give you a lot of information, especially in lieu of the fact if there is no existing documentation, which happens a lot, and we have to create that information. And we're up to number 10 technique, reverse engineering. And I'm sorry, yeah, number 8. And Kathleen, are you able to do that now, or?
Yeah, I can jump in if you want me to.
Sure. He's been dealing with all the technicals, so.
Sorry, everyone. I have been juggling like a mad person back here. It worked. I've tested it 6 times over the weekend, and I tested it again last night. So, of course, today, Facebook decided to fight back. It's all fun. Okay, so let's do something that we can actually do something about. All right, so reverse engineering is the process of taking something apart to see how it was made and how it works. And very often you find parts that you didn't even realize were in there when you're doing this. Now, this can certainly be done on something physical, but it can also be done on a process, a product, or software. Very often, this captures unknown requirements. Existing requirements is usually the first thing that you find, something that people have just gotten so used to and take so for granted that they forgot to mention it, which would have been a catastrophic problem had we not found it in time. So this is a way to make sure that you're not going to lose anything, so no previous requirements or functionality are going to be lost as you move into the new project. That generally makes people very happy when you don't lose things. It also helps you understand the as-is state. You can talk to people, you can shadow them, and you get you know, a good view of everything. You can read the documentation to see how they explain how things are working. But through reverse engineering, you can find out how much of that is truth and how much of that is a little fuzzy. You can also use that as an opportunity to identify outdated or duplications of processes. That happens over time too. You know, somebody doesn't realize something's in there, or it's in there but not exactly the way they want. Maybe it's missing a field, and so they'll duplicate the whole thing just to get that one extra field in, and now your systems are doing twice the work, which is probably skewing your data in the long run. So this is a good time to catch those and clean those up. And the other benefit of reverse engineering is that you can find parts that are existing that maybe you can reuse in a different manner. You know, maybe some of the new functionality that they think they need really could work inside of something that exists if you just modify a couple of things. Of course, being careful not to break anything in the process. So that repurposing, that's a big money and time saver, and that's one of my favorite things about reverse engineering. Prototyping. I'm going to spare you and not turn this into a 4-hour lecture because prototyping is my world. But basically, that is the process of building a product, process, or application in order to evaluate the concept, clarify the design, demonstrate the intended functionality. So this is everything. This is flows and wireframes and mockups and all that. And so, you know, when it says, you know, building a model, that's really all it is. It's not functional. You don't really connect it to databases unless you want to do it like a dummy one just for, you know, purposes of testing. But really, it's just to make the things that everybody has been talking about a little bit more real, but not completely real. You really want this to look rough, because otherwise they start to think the project's done. And it's not. You're just showing them the progression, making sure that everybody is agreeing on things, everybody has the same picture in their head, and this is a great way to do it. So this way, all the users get a better understanding of the system being developed, and making sure that it maps to the dream picture in their head. It's a great time to get user feedback because it is real enough for them to be able to envision themselves using it, or their team using it, or it being a part of their process. And this is the time when you find out a lot about missing, confusing functionality, errors, things that they thought were going to be there that, you know, aren't. This is the time to catch it. It is way cheaper to catch and fix these things now than it would be, you know, 3 months later when you're ready to go into production and you find out, you know, that there's this whole core piece missing. Love me some prototyping. Even if it puts me in a position like I was in earlier today, where I talked through a 4-hour meeting. But it was worth it because we got a lot of things resolved, and something that we thought was going to be a big, hairy problem, we were able to collectively come up with a very elegant solution for, so well worth it. This one's mine too, right? Focus groups. Okay, focus groups are interactive, guided discussions with a select, diverse group of people in order to obtain insights on how an application, product, service, or concept is perceived. So this is usually a mixed group. Sometimes, depending on what it is you're building, this could just be people off the street that, you know, you're going to give, you know, $10 to for, you know, the hour of their time or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to do this. But again, it's another way to get another set of eyes on it and to get more input early on when it's easy to fix things. So the types of things that you catch in this, you find out for real how understandable and how easy it is to use this. Sometimes we get too close to it and it seems logical to us, and then you put it in front of somebody who's never seen it and they have no clue. That's the time to catch it. You can also, again, address users' perceptions of functionality, needs, and expectations. You'll also get, and you'll get a lot of this, I like this color. I want the logo bigger, smaller, spinning. So, but this is the time to get that and address it, and this is also a great time to start setting some expectations and managing those expectations. And this is also a good time to bring marketing in so that they could start to see it and start to think about what their plans are going to be. All right, Mare, I'm throwing it back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen. The slide that you're seeing now is just sort of matching technique to needs. And obviously, a lot of these things can be, thank you, Kathleen. A lot of these things can be, these techniques can be applied to different parts of requirement gathering. And we just gave you a couple check marks here, for example, for, you know, process or workflows. And I can't read the second one because it's too small, but it's the different parts of the functional requirements or data and the different places that you could use these techniques, the different requirements. And Obviously, you would use more than one technique when you're gathering requirements or eliciting information from users. But this just gives you a little quick little handy guide of what you could use potentially for that. And this was requirements gathering and elicitation. It's sort of like speed dating because of the techniques that, the technical issues that we had earlier. So we kind of flew through that, and we do apologize for that.
We started about 12 minutes late, so it balanced out.
So, if you think, you might have taken some type of, medication that made things seem like they were speeding up, it really was speeding up. I know we speak fairly quickly here on the East Coast anyway, but this was exceptionally fast. But we hope you enjoyed it. As you know, soliciting and gathering and documenting business requirements is the critical first step for every project. And the good news is, using these techniques, you'll be well on your way to a very successful project. So remember, again, we're doing this for you. Whatever your business analyst questions are, we can help you get to where you need to be. So be sure to tell us what you'd like to see in upcoming episodes of the show, and let us know where to send you a copy of our survey guidelines ebook. We didn't get to do a trivia question. We normally do that in the pre-show, so we'll catch up on that next week. And don't forget to follow, to leave us questions or feedback in the comment section here on Facebook, tweet or DM us on Twitter at the BA Zone, or you can go to our website, thebazone.com, and use our comment form. And remember to like us and subscribe in all the usual places. Or if you prefer, you can take our 3-question survey, and we'll put the link in the post so it's easy to find. Okay? That wraps up our show. We'll be back next Tuesday, hopefully on time, where we'll be taking a deeper dive into 2 of the techniques we discussed tonight, and that would be document analysis and observation or shadowing. And we look forward to talking to you then. So please join us and tag any of your friends or your coworkers who might find this content helpful. And don't forget to click the subscribe button so you'll get notified when we go live. And as always, we're here to help you own the zone of business analysis. So thanks again for coming by, and see you next time on the BA Zone Live.